Have you ever looked at a situation and thought, there's just no way this is going to happen? Maybe you've convinced yourself that it's too late to learn something new, change careers, or believe your life could become something different. What if one of the greatest obstacles we face isn't our personal circumstances, but the way we see them? Today we're going to explore what it means to live with possibility and why it can open doors we never knew existed. I'll share a story that changed the way I think about possibility, what psychology teaches us about curiosity and hope, and one simple practice that may help you see opportunities you hadn't noticed before. This is the Karen Schaal podcast, where we expand the mind and grow the heart. I'm Karen Schaal. Let's get started. Several years ago, our family wanted to attend World Youth Day in Rome. With 6 of us traveling, it seemed impossible. My first thought was, there's just no way. But instead of letting that first conclusion become the final conclusion, we asked ourselves a different question. Is there any other way we can make this work? Because I had retired from the military, we wondered if there might be a military-sponsored group traveling to Rome. And there was. Through a group in Germany, we were able to travel to World Youth Day in Rome for $89 per person, including flight, meals, and lodging. That experience has always stayed with me, simply because it seemed like there was no way we were going to go. Changing my perspective, asking the right questions, and considering other possibilities changed everything. It also changed how I approached other situations in my life that seemed impossible, or times when things were going my way. Instead of assuming it wasn't possible, I found myself thinking, I need to check this out. I need to see if that's really true. Because let's face it, with the internet and so many resources available today, it's easier than ever to explore possibilities we may never have considered before. Living with possibility doesn't guarantee that every problem has a solution. It doesn't promise life will somehow be made easier. But it does keep us from closing doors before we've even tried to open them. So why do so many of us come to the conclusion, there's just no way? Part of the answer lies in how our minds naturally work. Our brains are constantly trying to make sense of the world around us. We take in thousands of pieces of information every day. And to keep from becoming overwhelmed, our minds look for patterns, make predictions, and draw conclusions. Most of the time, that's incredibly helpful. It allows us to solve problems quickly, recognize danger, and make decisions without having to analyze every situation from the beginning. But there's a downside. Sometimes our brains reach a conclusion before we've explored all the possibilities. We begin to believe our first thought is the only thought, or our first answer is the final answer. That's exactly what happened to me when I first considered taking our family to Rome. I looked at the costs, and I looked at our circumstances, and my brain immediately concluded there's just no way. The interesting thing is that nothing had actually been decided yet. The facts hadn't changed. The only thing that had changed was my conclusion. That is something psychologist Martin Seligman, co-founder of positive psychology, spent years studying. He found that we all develop what he called an explanatory style. In other words, we naturally explain life's events to ourselves. Those explanations matter because we don't simply respond to what happens to us. We respond to what we believe those events mean. If we tell ourselves this will never work or there's nothing I can do, we usually stop looking. But if we tell ourselves, I wonder if there's another way, our minds begin searching for possibilities instead. That one question changes the direction of our thinking. The good news is that our first conclusion doesn't have to become our final conclusion. One of the simplest ways to interrupt automatic thinking is through curiosity. Curiosity slows us down. Instead of assuming we already know the answer, curiosity invites us to ask another question. What haven't I considered yet? Is there another way to get this done? Those kinds of questions don't guarantee a different outcome, but they often lead us to a different perspective. And sometimes a different perspective changes everything. Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory of positive emotions offers another important insight. She found that positive emotions such as curiosity, hope, and gratitude broaden the way we think. Instead of narrowing our focus to what's wrong or what seems impossible, they help us notice possibilities, opportunities, and resources we may have overlooked. But the theory doesn't stop there. Over time, those broadened ways of thinking help us build lasting personal resources. We develop greater resilience, increased knowledge and skills, more confidence, better coping abilities, and greater psychological well-being. That is a lot of personal resources. And when you think about it, many of those resources naturally increase the possibilities available to us. Greater resilience helps us keep going. New knowledge and skills create opportunities, and confidence gives us the courage to try. In other words, the more we build these personal resources, the greater our capacity becomes to recognize and pursue new possibilities. So what does living with possibility actually look like? I'd like to invite you to do something a little different this week. Before looking ahead, take a few moments to look back. Can you remember a time in your life when something seemed impossible until it wasn't? Perhaps you pushed beyond what you thought you could do, or discovered an opportunity you never imagined. Those experiences tend to stay with us. They're often vivid memories because they often change more than the situation. They changed how we looked at the world. If one of those moments comes to mind, spend a little time with it. How did you feel? People who have experienced possibility know what it feels like. There's a sense of excitement, accomplishment, wonder, gratitude. You begin to realize the world may be larger than you first believed. Those moments become part of who we are, and they can change the way we approach the next challenge. Now, some of you may be listening and thinking, I don't know if I've ever had an experience like that. That's okay. The more you begin looking for possibilities, the more you'll recognize them. Perhaps this week you'll begin creating your own possibility moment. Please share with me what you do. It can be pretty exciting. Now I'd like to invite you to look at one area of your own life where there is a small habit or behavior you quietly decided nothing is going to change. Maybe you've been saying, I'll never be able to. Whatever comes after those words, pause. Instead of staying in the finality of the impossibility, become curious, read, explore, ask questions, talk with someone who's already done what you're trying to do. You don't have to believe everything you read or try every idea, but you owe it to yourself to discover whether your final conclusion is actually true. That's very different from wishful thinking. That's curiosity, learning, leaning into science as a foundation. Because every time we learn something new, we increase the number of possibilities available to us. Of course, sometimes we discover there really isn't another way, but many times we discover there is. Before we finish, I'd like to leave you with a simple pattern to remember. When you find yourself thinking there's just no way, remember this. Become curious, gather information, explore the possibilities, and then decide what you want to do. This pattern won't solve every problem, but it may keep you from closing the door that never needed to be closed in the first place. I appreciate you joining me here today, and if this episode encouraged you, please like and subscribe, and do share it with those you care about. Sometimes a single conversation can open a door someone didn't realize was there. Until next time, remember, don't let your first conclusion become your final conclusion. This is the Karen Schaal Podcast, where we expand the mind and grow the heart. I'm Karen Schaal. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.